Hi, my name is Steffi Thomas. On behalf of Veltree, my CFO team, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar that is on how to ace your performance appraisal in one's organization. So the speaker for today is S. Venkat, who is the founder director of My CFO, a chartered accountant by qualification. S. Venkat is also an entrepreneur and category creator. He leads MyCFO, India's largest and fastest growing CFOing services company. At MyCFO, we conduct water interactions for over 150 our team members. Apart from being involved with annual performance appraisals for over 1,500 accounting team members at our clients who report into my CFO's CFOs. So S. Venkat is therefore uniquely positioned to tell us how we should go about getting a top rating at our appraisals. So over to you, Venkat. Thank you.
Of how we should be viewing our performance appraisal. Is this a chore that you need to be doing because the company wants you to do it, or is it a career enhancement opportunity for you? The second takeaway from today's webinar is to leave you behind with some tips on what you could be doing before the performance appraisal. A lot of us incorrectly believe that the appraisal time is the 1 hour that you get annually with your boss. Nothing could be farther than the truth. A lot of the impact that you can do is actually well before the performance appraisal. So we want to leave behind some tips for you to think about as to what you can do before the appraisal. At the end of this, we should also be leaving behind some resource tools that you can use to read after this webinar is over. So we put together some interesting statistics for you on performance appraisals. 20% of all the employees feel that their bosses don't even think about their appraisals till the time the bosses walk into the room. Now, this is the result of a Forbes and a Gallup study. 45% of all HR leaders think that performance reviews are not an accurate appraisal of their employees' work. So, the HR leaders themselves, nearly half of all HR leaders think that performance reviews are probably not accurately reflecting the actual performance of the employees on the ground. Now, what do your bosses or managers feel? 58% of all managers feel that performance reviews are not a good utilization of their time. So, it sometimes makes you wonder, why are we doing it? If 20% of all of you believe that performance appraisals are not useful, 45% of HR heads believe it's not useful, and 58% of your managers believe that it's not useful. Nearly half of you believe that performance processes are weak in either helping you to reach your development goals or in helping the organization to get business value, right? So why does anybody do a performance appraisal? Either to help company performance or to help an employee development, and preferably both. But nearly half of you believe that the internal performance processes in your companies are not strong enough to achieve these objectives. It's a staggeringly high percentage. However, having said all these fairly depressing statistics, what is very interesting, although not very surprising, is that performance appraisals determine promotion and increment decisions in 95% of the cases. Now, why does this happen? Is because in most companies, the promotion and increment slabs are determined by ratings that are agreed by your supervisors at the end of the year, because that's really seen as the only objective way to determine who should be getting what. Now, if the performance processes are so weak, but end of the day, if the appraisal is still going to make an impact on your promotion or increment in 95% of the cases, then frankly, regardless of what you think and the HR manager thinks and your boss thinks of the performance appraisals, the appraisals are still very, very important to you. Because end of the day, it looks like the decision on where your career is headed in your company or the amount of money that you make are both going to be determined by the ratings that you get in the performance evaluation or the performance appraisal. So what can you do about this? So the first thing about approaching an appraisal is to understand that this is really an interaction. It's not a one-way street. I think most mature organizations realize this, and increasingly companies are thinking of appraisals not as an avenue where the boss can tell you how you can improve performance, but it's really about you as an employee also telling the organization what you want changed within the organization. So we don't need to necessarily approach a performance appraisal discussion with a defensive mindset. I think it's very important to approach it with an open, partnership oriented mindset. So it all starts by determining what do you want out of your appraisal? What is your expectation? Is it only to create a good impression on your boss, so that you can get hold of a good rating and therefore a good increment for next year? Is that the limited objective of the appraisal for you? Or do you want to understand where is it that your career is going? What's going to happen to you in terms of your progression within the organization in the next 12 months or 18 months or 24 months? Or do you want to know how you stand vis-a-vis your peers? What are the things that you're doing right? What are the things that you're not doing right on a relative benchmarking basis? Or is this discussion going to be about your role in the organization? Is it that you're getting bored with what you're doing? You want to try something new? Is that what you want out of the appraisal? Or is it that there are some fundamental behaviors, either on part of your boss or a few cultural issues within your organization that you're not very happy with and you want change? Is that what you want? Or are you seeking feedback about your own behavior? And what are those fundamental traits that you're possibly getting wrong that is holding back your performance? Or do you want to talk about your training needs? So there are a variety of things which can be covered as a part of the performance appraisal. The question is that are you clear about what you want out of it? It's extremely important for you to set the agenda for the appraisal. Again, it boils down to not viewing the appraisal as an annual thing that needs to be ticked off by the company for all its employees. But what is it that you want? Can you actually document it? Can you put it in an email? Can you send it out to your boss in advance and say, look, this is what I would like to discuss in my appraisal. This is what I think. Can you come prepared so that we can have a robust discussion on this during the 1 hour that I'm going to spend with you during my appraisal time? So in short, the first bullet is really about how you can seize the agenda. Can you seize the initiative and set out the list of items that you want covered in your appraisal? So change the game a little bit. The second thing, which again is something that you can do before the actual appraisal a day, is to document. Now, one of the challenges we all know is that 12 months is an awfully long period, and most of us forget by the time performance appraisals are done, maybe in March or April or May sometimes of the next year, people have really forgotten what you did in April or May of the previous year. And that's really nobody's fault. Memories are short. A lot of times, bosses end up making an evaluation of an individual based on how the last job went. So which means that maybe you had 10 months of great performance, but for some reason the last 2 months have been difficult. It's quite likely that your appraisal, somewhat unfairly, would probably get a lower weightage. Now, how do you avoid this situation is by documenting. When you do something good, make it a point to note it down. When something did not go well, make it a point to note it down. Open a diary, open a Word document, open an Excel sheet, whatever works for you. But the key is to document this on a disciplined basis. I think the best way to do this is possibly to get it done once in a month. And when you do it once in a month, chances are that these achievements are something which are likely to be fresh in your mind. And how all this helps is that when you do go into the performance appraisal date, you will be able to talk specifics and not general stuff, right? So when you get into a performance appraisal, making a statement like, in the first quarter of the year, my performance was good, really means nothing. But if you're able to go back and say that, look, I was able to reduce the working capital cycle by 3 days because I was able to bring the reorder levels in the company. I was able to define the reorder levels in the company, which was a process that was not there in place before, is more likely to get you marks. And the only way you can be ready for this kind of a discussion is if you actually document your achievements at the time you achieve them. It's ideal if you can actually send this document to your boss before the performance appraisal date. If you are smart about it, what you would do is to send not just a list of improvements or achievements that you've done, but you'll also send a list of what you did not get right. Now, why this is important is, regardless of whether the boss agrees with your assessment or not, it's important that he at least does not have a doubt about your credibility. And credibility is built only when you provide a balanced picture. So, while the natural tendency for most of us is to talk about our achievements at the appraisal, what really gives the boss a lot of comfort longer term is your ability to also list down your shortcomings. Think about it, document it, write it down, and believe me, it works wonders in terms of the trust that the boss will have on you for critical jobs going forward. The third thing that you could do is to get smart, right? So, what do you mean by smart? And I think this is a pretty standard definition that most finance and HR professionals will be able to relate to. So, make sure that whatever objectives that you have set at the beginning of the year are specific, they are measurable, they are achievable, they are realistic, and they are time bound, right? So, a good appraisal really starts with a good definition of the targets or KPIs that you have agreed to achieve. Now, if you don't have that, then possibly the current appraisal could be slightly difficult because you don't have a benchmark against which you can demonstrate results. But it's never too late. Make sure that you agree the KPIs now for the year that is going to come so that at least next year you don't have this problem. So get smart about your KPIs, and if you believe that the KPIs that are being shared by your bosses for you to accept are not adequately smart, then make sure that you make them smart through a discussion with your boss. It's like not having a smart objective is like moving the goal post in a game of football, right? I mean, you'll never know how to score a goal, and your score will probably be zero if the goal post keeps shifting. So, if you're an employee, the more specific you are able to get your boss to define your KPIs, the better a position you will be able to achieve those goals. We covered the fourth bullet, providing your self appraisal, a little bit earlier. In this appraisal, what may be good is to really talk about behavioral patterns, right? So, how did you feel during the last year in your company? Did you feel happy? Did you feel motivated? Did you feel like coming to work? What were the occasions that got you down? Providing specific instances of why you underwent certain behavioral or mood changes during the year is enormously helpful to your boss, because that gives him an insight into what perked you up. It gives you an insight into what got you down, and most importantly, it takes away the focus from the objective side of the performance appraisal to a more personal side of the performance evaluation. It's important for the boss to understand you as a human being, as an individual. Okay, so try and do a self appraisal that talks a little bit about what was your emotional state during the last year, and what are the factors that move your emotional state upwards or downwards. Fifth bullet, interact. It's not an interrogation. If you are in a company that is interrogating you as a part of the performance evaluation, you're probably in the wrong company. If your performance is good, there is really no reason why this can't be a two-way communication. One of the things that we'll try to do at my CFO, for instance, is we don't even call this a performance evaluation. It's called a mutual feedback process. because as much as what a company would love to evaluate its employees, the practical reality is that employees are also evaluating the company all the time. So why not just formalize it and make sure that this is more a mutual process rather than doing it as a one-way street. So come in with a mindset to interact. Don't start off with a defensive mindset where someone is going to interrogate you. Finally, when you document, put down your achievements, put down your challenges, but don't forget to put down solutions. So, what do you want your boss to do? What would you have done if you were your own boss? It'll be great if you can come back with 3 or 4 solutions. So, make sure that you give alternate solutions to your boss. It tells 2 or 3 things, right? It gives the boss an idea about what he or she can do to help you solve the problem in the next year. It sends a strong message to your boss that you're not just throwing problems at him, but you're also thinking through how to solve the problem. And a solution oriented mindset is something that's greatly valued in most companies. And third, it enables a conversation on what can be done going forward to have a more productive relationship rather than having a conversation about, you promised to do this, but you could not achieve it. That kind of a conversation does not add value. But having a conversation saying that, look, this is where we went wrong, and this is how we're going to solve the problem going forward, I think greatly enhances the value of the conversation, both for you as well as for your boss, right? The What we are trying to focus on over here is a fundamental mind shift in the way in which we think about appraisals. We believe that having now done a lot of this on a quarterly basis for our own team members and probably across the 1,500 odd accountants that we supervise at our client locations, that thinking of appraisals as a one-off event during a year where the boss and the employees spend an hour together is really the wrong thing to kind of think about, the wrong way to approach it. The right way to approach it is to make it more frequent, preferably quarterly, if not quarterly, at least half yearly. It's important to think of it as a two-way process rather than a one-way street. And it's important for this to be seen as a tool for engagement rather than evaluation. I think the days of employee evaluation are gone. It's really about employee engagement. And I think achievement of results is directly proportional to the quality and the efficacy of engagement between the company and its employees. So we are really suggesting a fundamental mind shift both on part of the company as well as the employee while getting into this process. So the bottom line is that you have a 70% better chance of an increment out of your performance evaluation if you engage more regularly with your boss. So this engagement is obviously not the day-to-day operational engagement, which will continue to happen. You will always have checks to be written, monthly closures to be done, ERPs to be implemented, cost reduction initiatives to be designed. You will always have an audit to be closed. You will have a fundraise exercise to be completed. There will be 4 quarterly board meetings, and you and your boss will keep having discussions on this throughout the year. We are not referring to that as engagement. We are really referring to engagement as possibly a quarterly conversation with your boss to say, look, can you take me out for coffee? And if you don't have the budget, can I take you out for coffee? And can we sit down and have an heart to heart chat about how the last quarter went and tell me what can I do more? What can I do better? And by the way, these are the things that I'm not very happy about the way you are dealing with me. So what can we do about it? Having a more regular, a more friendlier interaction means that your life in the company is not entirely dependent on that 1 hour that you get during the formal performance evaluation process. So you're basically de-risking this whole thing for yourself. You're possibly getting more timely, more meaningful feedback that will make your career a more enriching one. And hopefully, this will also mean more money in your bank account because you just maximized your chances of a better rating through better engagement. So why we need to do all of this is also that most of the bosses, nearly all the bosses, have already made up their mind about the rating that they want to give you before they come into the room, right? So although in theory the performance evaluation process is supposed to be objective and the ratings are supposed to be arrived at after the performance evaluation is closed, the reality is that mentally most bosses have really made up their mind on what rating they want to give you. So if that's the reality, what can you do? You've got to engage with the boss throughout the year to make sure that the rating that he gives you during the performance evaluation is not going to come as a complete shocker to you. So some resource tools that kind of brings us to the end of today's presentation. We are happy to take questions. We wanted to leave a few resource tools with you. One is from the Harvard Business Review, that's hbr.org. There is a nice article by Rebecca Knight on delivering an effective performance review. This actually has been written from the perspective of an employer, but I thought it would be good for you to read it because it gives you an insight into how your boss may be thinking about the performance review process, right? So try and get into his mind. If you read his mind, the chances are that possibly you will be able to understand what's going on in his head, and therefore it will help you to do a better job in your evaluation. The other article is a fairly short piece by Susan Adams, How to Ace Your Performance Review. This is on Forbes.com, and there is an anonymous article in the Wall Street Journal, again on the same topic of how to ace a performance review. So yeah, so you can just go up and Google this, put in the name of the publication. I'm sure it will pop up. Right, so that kind of brings us to the end of today's session. As always, we're very happy to take questions that you may have, and we can bring the session to a close probably in the next 15 to 20 minutes time. Okay, so we have a question here. In your view, can performance evaluation ever be completely objective? No, I don't think so. I think it's probably also somewhat unrealistic and unfair to expect that a performance appraisal can actually be 100% objective. We should not forget that ultimately a performance evaluation is being done between two individuals, and the moment you have people doing anything, the chances are that it's going to be fairly subjective. So that's the reality. However, several things can be done to make them objective, right? So doing evaluations at more frequent intervals improves the degree of objectivity, purely because you're relying less on memory and more on facts. Possibly having a second person in the room. So if it's you and your boss, maybe having one of your peers or one of your boss's peers or somebody from the HR department participating in the discussion, to somebody else who's aware about what you're doing, maybe a fairly good way of dealing with the situation and possibly bringing in more objectivity. Documentation and pre-printed forms definitely help. Having smart objectives help, right? So all of this can improve the percentage probability of objectivity. But can you be 100% objective in a performance evaluation? The answer is no. I mean, and that's the reality. So we'll just have to kind of accept it. There's no point in complaining as to why an objective is not, why an evaluation is not 100% objective. It is going to be subjective. So we just got to deal with that. Okay, so we have another question which asks that does performance evaluation always help in identifying high achievers? So that's the other interesting statistic that most HR managers believe. In fact, 65% of HR managers believe that the search for high achievers actually is misdirected in case of performance evaluation. So performance evaluations do not necessarily help you if you're an HR manager or a boss to identify the high performers. And I think the fault is not so much in the performance appraisal, but really the way in which you go about doing it. If we view the performance evaluation as a once in a year affair, then this is exactly what's going to happen. Chances are you will not be able to identify the high achievers. I think most bosses are smart enough to be able to make a gut decision on who's a high performer because they are dealing with their team day in and day out, right? So most bosses know intuitively as to who's a high performer. They don't necessarily need to wait for the performance evaluation process to be completed to be able to identify who is really doing well in their teams. Which is why throughout the year engagement is such an important thing from an employee standpoint. I mean, you can't think that you can do a so-so job during the course of the year, but then something fantastic is going to happen on the performance evaluation day. It doesn't work that way. I mean, there's no alternative to consistent, high quality, above average performance. Okay, so I see a question which says I'm working in a small office as a manager and directly reporting to the directors. Then what is a key point to justification for performance? Okay, so I think that in SMEs, if your employer looks like it's a small and medium enterprise where possibly the owners are also the managers of the company, I think the fundamental principles don't really change, right? Ultimately, every manager, whether he's an owner or a non-owner, is interested in retaining good quality talent so that they can simplify and de-stress their own lives. Everybody wants good quality people around them. So if your performance is good, I don't think you've got too much to worry. But when you put in your justification, what I see is that in SME companies, the promoters are fairly hands-on, and they will have three reasons to every one of your reason as to why they believe that an higher increment is not justified. Now, in these cases, I think with SME promoters, I find that it is best for you to define your KPIs in advance. And I also think that doing a quarterly evaluation will make a lot of sense because 1 year is too much of a time. SME promoters typically are very entrepreneurial. They tend to change their mind. Not necessarily a criticism or a bad thing about them, but it's just the way that they are. So if you're going to leave it open for a year, I think you're taking on a bit of a risk. So maybe the best thing to do is to sit down and define expectations for 1 quarter at a time, because 1 quarter in an SME can be a long time for the SME. So a lot of things would have changed in that 3 months time, and the expectations could be something different. So don't take the director's expectation from you for granted. I think you need to get them to call it out clearly, so that when you do go to them at the end of the year, there is no confusion on whether you have actually achieved the results or not. Okay, I see another question on my company does not have robust HR processes or even a proper HR department. What can I do? Okay, so I don't necessarily think that performance evaluations are an HR responsibility at all. I think it's really between the boss and you. HR departments in most companies are only responsible to set up the performance ecosystem, and they will make sure that there is some degree of fairness in the way in which evaluations are conducted. But I know of several organizations where HR departments don't exist or are not well developed and yet have a performance evaluation system. So this is really about how you and your boss want to do it. I mean, let's kind of step away from this entire management paradigm that says that performance evaluation should be done in a certain way. Let's just forget about all of that and just say that look, at the core of it, what really is a performance evaluation? It is a conversation between you and your boss, right, on how the year went by and what can you do to do better in the next year, right? How can we work together in harmony better, right? I mean, that's really the crux of it all. And my question is that do you really need an HR department to enable that? I think this has got to be done between you and your boss. So as long as the first principles are maintained, as long as you can document, as long as the KPIs can be smart, I really don't see the absence of the HR department to be an hindrance in this process. I mean, there is enough material that's available on the net for you to read and decide how you want to create a framework to evaluate your own performance. The other thing which I think I probably kind of touched upon very briefly earlier, which could possibly deserve some reiteration, is the fact that you need to articulate what you thought about your own performance. That really helps because sometimes I find that bosses are not terribly good at articulating or communicating what exactly went right or wrong. So if that is the case, it does your case no harm if you were to go out and articulate and say that, look, this is what I think of my own performance, right? And then let the boss react to it. So at least he knows where you stand, and it'll be easier for him to respond, to your comments or your articulation rather than leaving it only to him or her to articulate what they think about your performance. So that could be another tip for you to try and see how to move the conversation along the path that you want it to. Okay, I have a question, I think, from an HR perspective here, which asks if we do performance appraisals fairly, does it lead to a risk that an employee may ask for a high increment? Yeah, I think it does. And it's something that's the whole point, right? That we need to be remunerating our people fairly. So if there are overperformers, they will put forward their case in a logical way, and they will expect to be evaluated fairly, and they will expect that they get remunerated accordingly. What will help in these cases is, I honestly I think that trying to for a company to try and duck out of a fair conversation with an employee at the end of the year is completely suicidal. I mean, we may think in the short term that we have got the smarter of the employee, but I think it's a completely wrong thought process. The whole premise of this exercise is that we believe that the company is serious about retaining and motivating the talent that it has got. Now, if the company is serious about the intent, then it must put that into practice. And if we do a fair evaluation and we find that somebody has really done well, and if your company average increments are maybe 10-12%, then probably you need to give a 20% increase to the person who's doing really well. Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, how will you? The whole point of this is that you're going to drive performance averages up, and unless you set the right tone for the people who are overperforming, there's a big risk that you will be left with a company that is full of underperformers. So I would strongly encourage you to actually go out and do that above average increment, even if it involves a financial cost to the company, because overall, I think longer term, the company will come out positive. Now, as an HR head, sometimes this can be a challenge because you're also given an HR budget, a payroll budget. What is useful in these kind of cases is for you to make provisions in the budget for high performers, is to agree policies with your directors and board in advance, right? To say that the average increment across the board for normal performance is say 10%. You actually put it down on a document. You then say that, look, for overperformers, it will be anywhere between 15 to 20% based on the boss's recommendation. Put all this down, circulate it to the board, circulate it to the CEO, and make sure that you get an approval. So this is what you can do as the HR head to make sure that the company has got a mechanism to deal with requests that come from overperformers. Okay, I see a question here on how my CFO goes about doing performance appraisals. Okay, so we have a fairly simple process. We don't call it a performance appraisal, we call it a mutual feedback process. We have a policy document that outlines the principles of how the process will be carried out. We do this 4 times in a year. We do this for all team members, whether they are old, new, senior, junior, pretty much everybody is brought into the loop. We don't call our people employees, we call them team members. And the process we are trying to follow is to make it genuinely two-way, which is to make sure that not only do the supervisors at the company pass on feedback, but we also have an equal opportunity as team members to pass on feedback to our supervisors and to the company. So the attempt is to create an open culture, which is what we believe we have, which makes it easier to have these two-way conversations rather than making the performance evaluation look like a bit of a judgment call at the end of the year that the company makes on its individual employees. Okay, looks like we have come to the end of the questions. I'm happy to stay on for another minute since we have the time in case there are any additional questions, happy to take them. Else we'll bring the discussion to an end at the end of another 60 seconds. Okay, it looks like we have no further questions. So thank you all for attending today's webinar. I hope you. Oops, I can see one more question. I'm so sorry. I received a 10% increment in salary in Jan 16. Should I be eligible for next appraisal in April 16? Okay, so very specific question. Hard for me to tell you what the right answer is. So most companies decide whether they want to follow an annual cycle, which is a financial year cycle in most companies, that is April to March, or an anniversary cycle. So anniversary cycle is to say that if you join the company on Jan 1st, every Jan 1st, you become eligible for an increment. It's very rare for a company to do both, right? Because that doesn't make sense. I mean, the whole point of an annual increase is that it's annual increase. It's not twice a year increase. So it's quite possible, of course, that you joined the company in April and in January, and maybe you got an increase in relation to your last employer, and then you become eligible for a further increase in April as well. But to get two increases is, I think, a bit unusual, right? So I guess you'll have to probably talk to your HR. But what is reasonable is once you've joined a company to expect an increase once in a year, not twice in a year. Okay, so there's another question that's come through, which is how can the efficacy of a performance appraisal evaluated or measured? Okay, so I think this is really more an HR question. I think it's a very good HR question. To me, I think the efficacy of a lot of these things can be best measured immediately after the process is concluded. So, say within a month of the performance evaluation being completed, to try and run a survey with both the supervisors as well as the employees to see if they thought that the evaluation process was fair and useful, right? And so that could be one way to kind of throw it open, run a survey, figure out what is it that people think about the process. The other thing that you could think about is to measure the attrition rate at within the high performers group, right? So if in your organization typically there would be say 20% of the people who are in a high performance group. So if you measure attrition within that high performance group, it may not give you a direct indication of how good your performance appraisals are, but it will give you a good proxy. Because again, as I said, it depends on how you run the performance appraisal. If it's going to be only ratings, it cannot give you an insight. But if it includes a mutual feedback, then chances are that the high performer has actually given feedback to the company for improvement. So you may be able to look at the attrition rate and link it back with the feedback that an individual has given during the performance appraisal to see if there is a correlation there. So that could be another way that one may want to look at it. Yeah, so I think those are two things that possibly we could think of doing. I've got one more question here. That do we need to have performance appraisals at all levels? Yeah, I think absolutely it should be, and that is for two reasons. The one is for ensuring that the process has got credibility, right? So in any organization where the leaders, the seniors are exempted from a performance evaluation, but the juniors are being put through a performance evaluation does not really make sense at all, right? Because ultimately the results are being delivered, or the responsibility for the results rests with the seniors. Now that is a place where you really want to manage performance. Now you let the seniors go off the hook and then catch hold of the juniors in order to impose a performance evaluation process. I think it's a very unfair way to go about doing it. So in fact, I would say that the direction in which the performance evaluation should be carried out is top down, not bottoms up. So absolutely, I do believe that we must have performance appraisals across all levels. Okay, there's one more question. If the outcomes don't match the efforts put in, how do you tackle tough questions during the performance evaluation process? See, I think this is a common problem across all companies, that employees typically generally tend to, not all of them, most of them tend to look at the effort they put in and not at the outcome. And in many cases, there is a reason, a very good reason for it, which is that there are a lot of dependencies. So in many of the employees, the KPIs that they have achieved depends not just on their effort, but also on the coordinated effort of other people. And a typical employee's thinking is to say that, look, if I don't control all aspects of the work, how can you hold me accountable for the results? Which is fine. So in those kind of situations, as a part of the SMART process, it's important to also outline dependencies clearly, so that the dependencies can also be mapped, and it's clear that I will achieve so much provided A achieves so much, B does so much, X does so much, and so on and so forth. But a larger question to my mind is about what is the performance management culture within an organization. Does the organization want to reward people for hard work, or does it want to reward people for results? So increasingly we are seeing that companies are wanting to reward people on results. I think most mature companies have already moved there, but even the not so mature companies are clearly moving along those lines. So understanding or stating the entire output in terms of results and not in terms of hours spent, I think is a cultural change that needs to happen through the organization, both with the seniors as well as with all our team members. It's a tough one, but one needs to embark on that process, because end of the day, shareholders and boards, they evaluate the CEO based on results, not basis on the number of hours that the CEO is putting in the office. And ultimately, if a CEO is to be in a position to achieve the results, it's going to be impossible unless all team members are pulling in the same direction as well. So, while it sounds very tempting to say that, okay, let's evaluate someone on the basis of the effort put in by the individual, I think it's not good either for the individual or for the company to go down that path. I think it's better to talk of performance management in terms of outcomes, results, not inputs or hours. Okay, there's one more question here. How do we always need to maintain bell curve in the performance appraisal? No, we don't need to. See, the reason why bell curve has come into place is to enable normalization, right? Sometimes we find that some bosses are very liberal with the ratings, and some of them are not so liberal, and then a bell curving is done to do a bit of rationalization, normalization. I don't necessarily believe in the bell curve, although our own experience at my CFO and also with most of the companies we work with is that even if you don't follow the bell curve, if you draw out a curve of how people have rated performers, it normally falls into a bell. So I think it depends on what stage of maturity your HR and performance evaluation processes are. If you don't have any processes in place, it may not be a bad idea to start with the bell curve. I think that's what 90% of the evaluations would tell you anyway. So, let's start with that. But if you have a fairly robust performance evaluation mechanism and you've got good experience of having done this, your employees are comfortable with the way the process is working, it's fair, reasonable, it's mature, it's settled down, it's bedded down completely, then one does not need to necessarily look at the bell curve as the only way to do performance evaluation. So take a call on this based on how mature your performance evaluation processes are. Okay, I got one more question here. Okay, can you ask a future company strategy at a performance evaluation interview? Yes, I think we should. It is, as I said, it's really an interactive process. So it's not just the boss asking you questions. You should be asking the question to your company on where the company is headed. I think, to my mind, your continuation in the company is to a large extent dependent not just on what you get from the company, but also where the company is going, right? So if you believe that the company's growth prospects are not exciting, you believe that the company is taking a direction that you don't feel comfortable with, you need to know about these things. So absolutely, I think this is a question that you should be asking your boss during the performance evaluation discussion. One more question. can you be held responsible for not achieving KPI due to others not participating in the process to achieve the KPI? Okay, and how do you deal with this situation? See, I think this is a common question, right? That comes, and we all believe that dependencies are unique to us. I mean, that's far from the truth. Okay, dependencies are very much part of everybody's life. Just like how you feel that your performance could be called in question because some people on whom you were dependent did not deliver. Don't forget that your boss is also in a similar situation where probably he's not able to deliver because you have not done something right, right? So mutual dependencies is a part of life, okay? And we have got to find a sensible way of dealing with this in the performance evaluation process. A good way, in my view, is to be able to drop these dependencies right at the KPI setting stage itself. So when you're sitting down with your boss and you're agreeing the KPIs with him, your KPI could be subject, it could be dependent, it could be contingent on certain things happening. So you need to call that out. Now the responsibility to call it out, in my view, it is better that it is taken by the employee because you know your dependencies best. Your boss may be at a slightly high level, may not really understand the full reality on the ground. So it's best for you to draw it out so that there is no incorrect drawing out of the dependencies. Now, you also need to decide when you want to do this. My view is you should do it immediately when the KPIs or at the time when your KPIs are being set. If you have accepted a KPI and then in 3 months' time you go back to your boss saying that there are some dependencies, I think that's a slightly unfair discussion. It is when you are agreeing the KPI, put out your dependencies at that point itself so that your boss is in a position to deal with this. Now, if that has not been done, okay, let's look at that situation where the dependencies have not been drawn out and now your performance evaluation is happening and you are being held accountable for outcomes and you had some dependencies which were not discussed. It's a tough one. You'll have to deal with this on a one-off basis. You'll have to sit down with your boss and reason it out with him. But the mere fact that you have dependencies is not going to save you. As I said, dependencies are there in everybody's role. It's expected now by most companies that we will manage those dependencies. But if it's something exceptional, maybe it's a group of people on whom you're dependent, which does not report to you. This is a typical situation that happens with finance teams, for instance. Then they will take on a working capital reduction target, for instance, and they will figure out that the purchase guy did not send the data on time or the storekeeper did not send the data on time, and those guys don't report into finance, they report into a different person altogether. So how do you deal with that situation? So these are cases where there is really no alternative but to really start at the top. In my view, any individual's KPI has got to be a subset of the departmental KPI, right? So if you're in the finance team, the finance KPI has got to be set, and when the finance department KPI is being set, you need to have all other stakeholders, including the purchase head and the stores head and the CEO and the finance head and everyone sitting in the room, so that these kind of dependencies are thrashed out at a high level itself. Once it is thrashed out at a high level, then figuring out what the individual KPI should be, which will obviously have some dependencies in them, will not be so much of a problem. Okay, so we just had a bit of flurry of questions there in that last 1 minute that we gave to invite the questions. But thank you for the enthusiastic participation. It's always a pleasure to have this situation where there are a lot of questions and answers flowing. You have our coordinates here, so we are happy to stay in touch with you post this webinar as well. And we look forward to having you on the next webinar. Over to you, Steffi.
Thank you, Venkat. It was a amazing webinar where we got to learn more like how we should get our performance appraisal rated by our own bosses. And the session was quite interactive and quite motivating. So thank you, folks. If you have any questions related to this particular webinar, you can write to us at srijit.nair@mycfo.in, or else you can also write to Venkat sir, that is venkatraman.s@